Number 9. If I get a brain aneurysm as the result of this review, can I hold the filmmakers responsible? At this point, I realize who the Phantom Menace is.
Oh, good. I didn't think it was that complicated, but I'm glad you finally gotten there.
No, it's not Jorge. It's Qui-Gon Jinn.
Plinkett, the Phantom Menace is Palpatine. Him being a literal phantom in the opening scene symbolizes that. He's an unknown figure pulling the strings to destroy the Republic from the shadows. The title is kind of clever too, because it can mean the threat doesn't really exist, which is the point of the Trade Federation, so it can apply to them as well. It could also refer to the arrogance of the Jedi, and their inability to recognize their political failings, them believing that there's some threat out in the ether, when in reality they bring about their own destruction. Qui-Gon is neither a phantom nor a menace. In fact, he's the only character to see past the quagmire of politics and power struggles to focus on doing what he believes is right.
His character is totally baffling to me, and I do not know why he's in this movie.
Because he's a well-written character and acts as a foil to the Jedi Council. He acts according to what he believes is the will of the Force and not other, pettier things.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What?
He's the only person who actually wanted to save and train Anakin. He's the only character that recognized there was something more sinister in the actions of the Trade Federation, and he acts as a mentor and guide for the characters and the audience to the world of Star Wars under the rule of the Republic. He's incredibly unique in this universe, and the story would be significantly worse off without him.
If you ask me, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi should have been combined to form a new character, called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan should have been the younger, eager, adventurous Jedi.
Okay. Because that wasn't his character in this movie?
Who found Anakin, formed a bond with him, and then really wanted to train him in the Jedi arts when Yoda told him no.
You have a spectacular capacity to miss the point, Mike. The point of Qui-Gon finding Anakin and bonding with him, and not Obi-Wan, is that Anakin becomes an obligation to Obi-Wan, and Anakin knows it. Anakin escaped a life of slavery thanks to the actions of a man who sincerely believed him to be special, and wanted to show him how to harness his strengths and become something more. Even though everyone around him told him it was too dangerous. That Anakin was too dangerous.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
His fate is uncertain. He's not dangerous. The Council will decide Anakin's future. That should be enough for you. Now get on board.
When Qui-Gon dies, Obi-Wan takes him on as a Padawan, not because he genuinely wants to, or because he believes in Anakin. In fact, he's just afraid of Anakin as the Council is, probably because the Council is. He does it because he promised Qui-Gon he would. Anakin is an outcast, taken in because the person who actually wanted him died. He knows he isn't wanted by any of the Masters, or even by Obi-Wan, and that plays a major role in his descent into this.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans, and bring me the passengers. I want them alive!
Instead, Obi-Wan, who seemed totally irritated with Anakin the whole movie,
it doesn't matter if this was a high school McQuaid Jesuit.
suddenly wants to train him at the end, only because Qui-Gon said to.
I gave Qui-Gon my word.
Yeah, guys, I'm actually at a loss for words. I'm just going to move on.
If they did have to have Qui-Gon, they should have had him on the ship, just like meditating the whole movie, and saying very little, and just being wise.
No, he should have been the leader because he's the older, more experienced, wiser Jedi. Which is what he is. What the fuck?
Then when Qui-Gon dies, Obi-Wan is left to move on without an older, wiser voice of reason.
Oh, that's what happens though.
Thus setting the stage for a poorly trained Anakin.
Okay, because Qui-Gon dies, Obi-Wan takes on a Padawan before he is ready, and his failings lead to Anakin's fall. He fails to recognize the hypocrisy of the Council, he fails to act on Anakin's suffering, and he fails to kill Vader after he's been lost to Palpatine. That is the main plotline of this movie and this trilogy. What the actual fuck? I thought part 4 was bad, but I'm actually just baffled.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Yeah, George, that's true. But the only thing poetic here is that I was vomiting in stanzas.
What does that even mean?
I don't even know what that means.
Oh. Okay then.
So for no reason, Obi-Wan is the one who does not want to defy the Council.
What do you mean for no reason? Oh my god, what the hell?
He's not a risk taker and he complains all the time like a woman.
We could be stuck here a very long time.
Women. Got him.
Then the older, wiser Jedi is the opposite of what he should be.
What the fuck do you mean what he should be? This is a movie. It's a story, not a fucking Mad Lib. You don't fill in the blank character names on the script of the originals with new character names. Kathleen, JJ, Ryan. George is making something new. Instead of lamenting what should be, why not take the story for what it is? Qui-Gon isn't a wizened old sage. He's a zealot. He's rational and calm, but he is so convinced by his own understanding of the world that he acts on his own will, regardless of the objections of those around him, including queens and councils. He doesn't need to be Obi-Wan from episode 4. He is older and wiser than Obi-Wan in this movie, and he acts like it. But wisdom is not a universal trait. It is expressed differently, sometimes incredibly differently from person to person.
Let's break down Qui-Gon, all the way to his midichlorians.
Are we about to get it on? Because I'm as hard as a diamond in an ice storm right now.
Number 1, he has very questionable moral values.
No, he doesn't. His morals are very neatly aligned with the highest good he believes is attainable. He wants to perform the will of the Force as he understands it, to protect the galaxy from those that wish to do it harm, and to save those he can along the way. He has very questionable ethical values. He is willing to do things that are morally good, but ethically bad, in order to achieve the goals he believes in. I know, English is a confusing language, and the difference between morals and ethics is complicated. And Plinkett's not the brightest. He tried. Here's a participation trophy.
Qui-Gon Jinn repeatedly uses his Jedi mind trick to his advantage. Whether it's to get Boss Nass to give him a bongo, which they completely trash, to use worthless money to scam Watto out of his ship parts,
Credits will do fine.
or to fix a legitimate bet to his advantage.
Okay, well, the last one, that isn't a mind trick, but your point is taken. And yeah, this is called characterization. George Lucas is trying to tell you about Qui-Gon's character through his actions in these moments. Qui-Gon is in a hurry, vital intelligence needs to be reported to the Senate and the Jedi Council. He knows he doesn't have time to waste arguing the finer points of the Trade Federation's invasion with Boss Nass, or haggling with Watto. The fate of the Republic and the actions of the Trade Federation are too important in his eyes, so he does something some would consider unethical in order to accomplish something moral. That's who Qui-Gon is. His ends justify his means.
It's generally wrong to do these things, wouldn't you say?
Okay, I think that is a significantly more complicated question than anyone realizes. I'm going to break down the Boss Nass situation here a bit, alright? So, you have an entire planet's worth of people that is now in direct danger, and the entire Republic in indirect danger. You encounter a new faction, whose leader has the means to aid you on a mission to possibly save that planet and the Republic, including this faction, but his stubbornness about the Gungans' relationship with the Naboo is stalling the process. You know virtually nothing about this culture, and you have no idea how they will react to you or your propositions. You can either continue to try to argue with this creature who is intelligent enough to carry on conversation, but not so intelligent that reason is guaranteed to be your ally in this debate, wasting time and possibly angering him and the people of the city you're in, putting yourself in a hostile situation without any means of effectively escaping or completing your mission, and leaving potentially billions or trillions to their fate. Or you can use the Force to manipulate this Boss Nass into lending you a single underwater transport so that you may go and save his life, the lives of his people, and the rest of Naboo. Is it morally wrong to use the Force on him? Probably not, though there isn't a definitive universal answer, and that's one of the major problems with framing your argument as Qui-Gon has very questionable moral values. Everyone has a different set of moral values, and moral values are constantly growing and evolving as we grow and evolve. In this situation, the benefits far outweigh the cost of the manipulation. So the motivation behind the action would be moral, and the end result would also be moral if your moral system was to uphold and perform the most good, however you define that. If Qui-Gon killed Boss Nass and took the Bongo by force, it would probably still be morally justifiable from this framework. From my perspective, and that's the only one I can offer, if Qui-Gon were to risk the lives of everything he strives to serve and protect in order to maintain the integrity of this one simple consciousness, that would be immoral. It would be cowardice. Now, is it ethical to mind trick Nass? And by ethical, I mean, is the action itself in line with Qui-Gon's own moral principles? Violating and controlling the consciousness of another living thing for personal gain is something I would consider evil, if we take the action for what it is without the context surrounding it. I think that almost everyone with a conscience would probably agree that the prospect of having your own thoughts and perceptions altered by anyone without your consent is terrifying, and so performing that action willingly and with knowledge of what you are doing would be unethical. But it is still probably the morally correct thing to do here. Do you see what I mean by this being incredibly complicated?
You can argue that the ends justify the means.
Yeah, I could, but that would take me hours, so I'm not gonna.
But if that's the case, then why didn't Qui-Gon just steal the part from Watto?
And somehow we're back to the Jedi committing suicide for fun. What is it with you in doing that? Look how big the part they need is. It's made of metal. It operates a hyperdrive that punches a hole into space-time. It's probably very heavy. And they have to get all the way back to their ship parked on the outskirts, which Anakin points out is pretty far.
Do you have shelter?
We'll head back to our ship.
Is it far?
It's on the outskirts.
You'll never reach the outskirts in time. Sandstorms are very, very dangerous. Come on, I'll take you to my place.
And what are Watto's security measures? Oh, you don't know. Well, neither do I. And neither does Qui-Gon. This is Hutt space, remember? The
Hutts are gangsters.
They will fuck Qui-Gon up if he gets caught. And if he does get caught, they will catch the Queen and the Naboo. And the Trade Federation will be free to take over Naboo and try to assassinate more political opponents or Jedi Knights. Do you remember when they said this?
Near the outskirts. We don't want to attract attention.
And you complained because they took Jar Jar? I can't imagine a more high-profile way of drawing every eye in the city to you than getting caught committing grand theft. Now, all that said, if Qui-Gon could steal the part without harming himself, the people he is protecting, or the Toydarian, I would probably make the argument that he would do it. I just don't think it's possible here.
He could sneak in the middle of the night and just take the part.
Plinkett, have you heard of something called an alarm? They might have those.
Or take it by force.
The Hutts, gangsters, protecting the Queen, not wanting to commit suicide for no reason.
And I don't mean that kind of force. I mean choke Watto while Padme grabs the part and they run out of the shop. Basically, it's the same as trying to trick him into accepting a worthless currency for the part.
No. Tricking Watto into taking a worthless currency doesn't land them in a Hutt dungeon necessarily. It just leaves Watto with a worthless currency.
In the end, Watto's just out of the part. This also leads me to believe that Qui-Gon Jinn is incredibly stupid.
I'm not going to say it. You deserve it, but I'm not going to say it.
He could have just went to another junk dealer and used his Jedi mind trick to swap out the Republic credits for money that Watto would take.
Okay. See, this is a good attempt at criticizing the film. Mike proposed a solution to a problem that is simple, that would help our protagonists and make it easier on them than what they decide to do. Why don't they just do this thing instead? But that is where my praise ends, because this one doesn't hold up to the film for multiple reasons. The first is that Qui-Gon doesn't want to attract attention to the fact that he's from the Republic. Trying to trade Watto for the Republic credits and trying to mind trick him was already a massive risk to his own safety. If he tries again and fails again, it could be potentially deadly for him and the people he's trying to protect. Repeated attempts will paint a target on his back. You could argue that if he tried it with Watto, he must be okay with that risk, and that he'd be willing to take it again if it meant getting himself off Tatooine. And I'd agree with that, but the situation in the movie doesn't allow it. As they leave Watto's shop, it's late in the business day because Anakin takes Qui-Gon and crew to his house to avoid a sandstorm. There isn't time to try another dealer or to scam someone out of credits. During the sandstorm is when Qui-Gon commits to the pod race plan, again because of a feeling and his faith in the Force. That's consistent with his character, and it happens before he has the chance to make another decision. This is one of the parts of the film where I'm actually conflicted, because during this call with Obi-Wan,
Master, we could be stuck here a very long time.
Well, it's too dangerous to call for help, and a ship without a power supply isn't going to get us anywhere. And there's something about this boy.
if Qui-Gon instead says, I have a plan if this doesn't work, but there's something about this boy, it would make the pod race feel less like an all-or-nothing risk that could potentially doom the galaxy, reassuring the audience that Qui-Gon is actively preparing for a failure or setback. But, at the same time, it is definitively in Qui-Gon's character, based on everything we've seen so far, to believe so stridently that he is right, and that the Force is guiding him here, and that he would bet everything he has on just this feeling, and then react to the situation as it happens. He probably doesn't even consider this a gamble, it's just what he is supposed to do, and he knows it. So much so that his Padawan even calls him out for it when they get to Coruscant.
It's not disrespect, Master, it's the truth.
From your point of view.
My point is, this was an actual attempt at criticism, and I appreciate that, Plinkett. I actually had to think about the argument for the first time in 5 parts. It's still not a flaw with the film.
In fact, when they arrive in town, he says,
We'll try one of the smaller dealers.
smaller dealers. Well, that implies there's larger ones. Watto tells him he's the only guy in town who's got the part.
And no one else has a T-14 hyperdrive, I promise you that.
Well, either Watto is using an older-than-dirt sales tactic, or Qui-Gon can really pick out which shop to go to randomly.
It's both. They pick a smaller dealer because Qui-Gon hopes to manipulate them into giving him the part, while staying as low profile as possible. He doesn't go to another dealer in the movie because of the sandstorm, and by the time it's over, he has a plan to get what he needs from the guy he knows has the part. It limits his exposure, and the Force is basically shining a giant spotlight on Anakin, telling him that the boy is special and can help him. It doesn't matter if it's a sales tactic or even if it's true. What matters is Qui-Gon confirmed that the part was there.
Oh, wait. I guess Midichlorians told him where to go so that he could find the boy. Oh, it was destiny or something.
Some people don't like destiny when it's in a story because it can be incredibly contrived and used as a lame story tool by shitty authors. Well, you see, it said here it was fate, so it had to happen this way, even though none of the characters would do this, and it makes no sense. Completely fair criticism, but that isn't what happens here. Is it contrived that Anakin just happens to be in this shop on this planet working at this time so Qui-Gon can find him? Yeah, it is. But all fiction is contrived. It's in the definition of the word. Is everything that happens in this story consistent with the rules of the universe and with the characters on screen and with the story being told? Yeah, it is. So the contrivance of this one plot point is not functionally detrimental to the film. It doesn't make the story being told unbelievable or impossible like some stories. It all makes sense. This is the story of how Anakin was found by the Jedi Order. Straightforward, logically consistent, and a little bit lucky.
Hey, here's another idea. Why don't you trade the Naboo cruiser for a less fancy but functional ship?
He did it again, by the way. I can't believe it. So I went back to find clips of Qui-Gon haggling with Watto so I could talk about the mind trick, right? Because he mentions it, and it's kind of important, and it does a lot of cool stuff for Qui-Gon's character. And I found out that Watto says this.
Ship. It would be cheaper, I think, huh?
Now, that is the movie explicitly acknowledging that getting a ship would be cheap, but Qui-Gon doesn't think it's safe and won't do it. This is directly answering your question, Mike. Please pay attention to the film. There are so many reasons, I don't even know where to start. The ship is inoperable without a hyperdrive. It would be like trying to sell a car with an engine that doesn't start. Basically, you could make a couple bucks for the scrap metal and the parts that do work. Even if it was enough for an entirely new ship, what would you do with all the Naboo fugitives that you are actively trying to keep hidden and all the Queen's belongings on the ship? They have to be transported to the new ship, and anyone who gets a good look at them might recognize them and tell the Hutts. That could be potentially disastrous. What if you buy a new ship after selling this one and that one doesn't work? You transport all the Queen's people into the new ship and get lucky that no one recognizes you or draws any attention to you, and then the new ship just doesn't turn on. Now you're stuck in a spaceport of a dangerous town run by a criminal enterprise and gangsters with a bunch of Republic credits and the exact same problems that you had before, but even less security. This is such a terrible idea, and right after you had such a good one. That is depressing.
Or maybe hire a transport.
What about the Queen's entourage? Did you forget they exist? What if the ship captain or the smuggler goes to the Hutts, who they definitely do business with? Why else would they be here? And tells them about this really strange transport crew he's picked up. What if he sells you out just because he can?
Pay them all the money you have now and then promise more when you get to Coruscant.
But this isn't just an old man and a farm boy Qui-Gon needs to transport here. It's an entire royal escort. Using a smuggler ship is so insanely dangerous.
Sound familiar? Someone who's like a transport ship captain or a smuggler would have use for Republic credits because they travel around the galaxy. Probably go to other spaceports.
They could use their Republic money. You know what else they could use? The Queen's escort as hostages for blackmail. Maybe for Hutt credits. That would probably be pretty lucrative, actually.
You know, makes sense. But instead of using like the most common sense approach to everything...
Common sense is a meme. There is no such thing. And the approaches you've laid out would get them all killed or worse. There's no easy solution to their problem. They have to take a gamble, one way or another.
Qui-Gon concocts some kind of convoluted scheme so that we could get to the pod race.
It's not convoluted. He offers to front a pod and his ship as the entry fee to sponsor Anakin in the race. Watto offers him a 50-50 split of the winnings, so Qui-Gon counter-offers Watto with fronting the entry fee and keeping all of the winnings except for the parts that he needs to repair his ship, and then offers his ship as collateral. He then ups the bet, offering Watto his pod for Anakin and his mother's freedom. Watto refuses to give up 2 slaves for a pod, so Qui-Gon lowers it to just Anakin. It's actually relatively straightforward as bets go. You front the cash, I supply the hardware and the collateral. And he does this instead of stealing the part or trying to mind trick some other dealer because he believes completely that Anakin is the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. And he basically confirmed that with Anakin's blood sample. In his mind, he isn't making a bet. He's being guided to success by the power of the Force. And not without good reason.
I honestly still don't understand it.
My ship will be the entry fee.
What would the boy ride? He smashed up my pod in the last race.
Well, I have acquired a pod in a game of chance.
So, you supply the pod and the entry fee.
If it's going to be 50-50, I suggest you front the cash for the entry.
I supply the boy. We split the winnings 50-50, I think, huh?
You keep all the winnings minus the cost of the parts I need.
So, you supply the pod.
We lose. You keep my ship.
You know, if you confusingly mash a bunch of disconnected lines from any scene together, from any movie this way, they're going to sound stupid and confusing. Because you're playing clips over top of each other out of sequence. Here's the scene.
So, you supply the pod and the entry fee. I supply the boy. We split the winnings 50-50, I think, huh?
If it's going to be 50-50, I suggest you front the cash for the entry. If we win, you keep all the winnings minus the cost of the parts I need. And if we lose, you keep my ship. Either way, you win.
Deal!
It's not that complex when you watch it without taking acid first.
Who was betting what?
Qui-Gon bets his ship for the entry fee. and the cost of the parts to repair it. Watto bets the entry fee and the hyperdrive for the ship. If Anakin loses, Watto gets Qui-Gon's ship. If Anakin wins, Watto gets the winnings from the race, minus the cost of the hyperdrive. How does this confuse you?
Then it gets more complicated later, when the bet changes.
I'll take that bet. I'll wager my new racing pod against, say,
Well,
the boy and his mother.
your pod is worth 2 slaves.
The boy then.
More complicated? He bet Anakin's pod for Anakin's freedom. Because Watto believes it's his pod.
So Anakin built the pod, but Watto didn't know that he built the pod, so that he raced with Watto's.
What the fuck is happening? Plinkett? Are you okay? Don't take anything the time goblins try to give you. It's a trap.
Pod. So then Anakin tells if Watto wins, Anakin tells Qui-Gon to pretend that it's his pod. And Watto says, I'm gonna put up the entry fee if you let me use your pod. They win, then the boy they get the money for the part, but if they lose, then Watto keeps the pod and the boy. Qui-Gon would have to pay back the Republic credits. Oh wait, no, he bet the ship. He bet the ship, and then if he loses the pod race, then Watto gets the ship in exchange for putting up the Qui-Gon wins, then he gets the prize money. But then later on, they throw the boy actually into the deal. First it's the ship versus the pod, and the mom in the bet. So then if Watto wins, I don't know. If Qui-Gon...
I lost everything.
Whenever you gamble, my friend, eventually you lose.
Dude, you gotta lay off the hard stuff. It doesn't agree with you. Ship for entry fee. The pod for the boy. Simple as.
Number 10, Anakin Skywalker.
What?
No one likes little kids.
I do. I've helped raise like 8 newborns in my life, and I'm only 25. None of them were even mine, but I still don't dislike kids.
Especially ones that can't act.
Coruscant?
Cut. Let's try it again.
That isn't fair. Jake Lloyd wasn't an amazing actor, but he did just fine. I have a 9-year-old brother, and he has all these little quirks and speech patterns that make him sound like a campy actor. That's how kids are. Hell, Lloyd even had some really great moments in this movie, too.
What would the boy ride? He smashed up my pod in the last race. To take some long time to fix it.
It wasn't my fault, really. Saboba flashed me with his Vince. I actually saved the pod. Mostly.
There are acting issues, sure.
I don't want you to race. It's awful. I die every time Watto makes you do it.
Anakin has a couple of them, but he doesn't ruin this film. He's cute, and he's a little kid who's obviously trying his best.
I'm a person, and my name is Anakin.
That isn't even bad acting. What are you doing?
It's a kiss of death for your movie.
Why?
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
Okay, that one's pretty bad. Not just the acting. This is the most stunted expository dialogue in the entire movie. It would be hard to make that line sound natural the way it was written for anyone, but yeah, it's not good.
The way they have it is that Anakin and his mom live in a comfy little hut, and if they leave, there's a bomb in their brain.
Any attempt to escape,
and they blow you up. Boom!
Okay, well look, see, that one was pretty good. Little kids don't grasp the weight of the consequences of these things. They just accept them, and then make them something more manageable for their own understanding. And Jake's acting here is like really good, actually. That line is delivered with a surprising amount of vivaciousness. He's a little kid who thinks explosions are cool.
I think that's the worst plot device ever shoved into a movie for convenience.
It's not a plot device. It's never relevant to the plot at all. It's world building, if it's anything. And even then, it's basically just a throwaway line to establish that the slaves are free to move around the city, but if they try to flee, there are countermeasures.
What purpose did Shmi Skywalker serve to Watto?
Mike, you're putting me in a position here where I have to explain the value of slavery. I do not appreciate that. Shmi provides free labor to Watto. That can be all kinds of tasks that would make Watto's job as a junk trader easier, from cleaning his shop to buying his groceries or taking out his trash. That's valuable, and wealthy people pay ridiculous amounts of money to have maids or butlers do it for them because of its value. You don't need to pay slaves, so you just get that service for free.
But she cleaned her own dishes?
And his trash and his shop and her house and the parts in the shop. I feel like explaining this is a waste of my time and yours, but he obviously didn't understand it, so I feel like I have to.
Oh, and then let's move on to this. What about the idea that Anakin is the one who built C-3PO?
What about it?
Wait. Oh. This is wrong for so many reasons.
This is going to be one of those things where he just says it and then moves on from it, isn't it?
I'm going to list 3 of them.
Oh, neat.
So the idea is that Anakin built C-3PO to help his mom around the house.
Yeah, having a droid around to do some of the more menial tasks and help with translating machine languages at a junk trader would probably be really helpful.
He's a protocol droid to help Mom.
But a protocol droid is typically used for etiquette and protocol.
You, I suppose you're programmed for etiquette and protocol.
Mm-hmm. See this droid? It's bringing the diplomats tea. That's etiquette. You know what services a slave with limited technical skills would probably provide? Delivering tea. Or something similar. The droid could probably also speak to the robotics that speak languages Shmi or Watto do not.
What I really need is a droid who understands the binary language of moisture evaporators.
Evaporators? Sir, my first job was programming binary load lifters, very similar to your evaporators in most respects.
Can you speak Bocce?
Of course I can, sir. It's like a second language to me. I'm as
All
fluent
right,
in...
shut up. I'll take
It has a lot of uses here. That's why Owen wanted one.
They're basically like robot diplomats.
No, the fuck they are not. What the fuck are you talking about? And why did you just play the scene of the robot doing menial labor, right? Look at it. It's delivering tea. Can you think of anyone else who might have to deliver tea during her day-to-day?
It's not really very handy technically.
Yes, they are. That's why Owen wants one.
Hello, I am C-3PO Human Cyborg Relations.
It says his human cyborg relations. He doesn't say cleans dishes.
But he could. He isn't incapable of it.
C-3PO is clumsy, awkward, and useless, unless you need someone to translate a language.
Or if you needed a neutral actor to do some reconnaissance, maybe deliver some tea.
I'm not much more than an interpreter.
And that would still be very useful for a tech or junk trader.
Plus his arms don't even bend. What the fuck is he supposed to help the mom with?
He could still push a vacuum around or something, but his uses are probably elsewhere.
A vacuum would have been a better thing to build.
Yeah, I did it again.
Liar!
Or maybe a vibrator.
From her 9-year-old son? I don't care if that's a joke, that's fucking gross.
As it seems like the only action Shmi was getting was with the Force. Hey, maybe that's why they call it the Force. Ah, rape jokes. I love them.
Yeah, but sometimes they come on a little bit strong.
Also, if you're a little boy with the knack for building things with spare parts, then why would you build the exact same droid that seems to have been mass-produced by a manufacturing plant somewhere?
Okay, you're not dumb. I know it. You can figure this out. Junk trader's slave. Mass-produced robot. Please, put 2 and 2 together here.
Wouldn't you build some kind of unique robot from your own imagination?
No, you would restore one of the junk bots Watto has in the back of his shop here. Obviously.
And to add to that, Watto already owned a protocol droid. It's laying there in the garbage dump. Why not just fix that one? Oh, we're still on this planet, are we? So Qui-Gon manages to pull off the most convoluted bet ever. And somehow wins everything except for Anakin's mother. Even at the end of the movie, when they save the day and probably could get the cash to buy the mom from Watto, they don't go back for 10 years.
The only person that would be willing and able to do that would be Qui-Gon Jinn. And he's dead. The rest that are able are Jedi Knights, and there are 200 reasons they don't. They don't want to cause a conflict with the Hutts. If they free this slave, how can they justify not freeing all the other slaves? Anakin, who they believe is a threat to them, has a personal attachment to this woman, so they don't want him going anywhere near her. She tells Anakin to never come back. Padme can't do it because her planet uses exclusively Republic currency. Plus, she's kind of naive about the way the galaxy works.
I can't believe there's still slavery in the galaxy. The Republic's anti-slavery laws are...
The Republic doesn't exist out here.
I can keep going. I'm not even close to done. But you get the point. It's not as easy as just go back and free her. There are obstacles that would need to be dealt with first.
Number 10. On to planet number 3. Is it time for death yet?
You can't kill me that easily.
Welcome to Coruscant, home of the mid-air collision. And boring scenes. So the Queen waits around for some kind of approval or for something to stop her people from dying. Why are they dying?
You can't be serious. We're back to that?
I guess they're dying though.
The Trade Federation have blockaded their planet of external resources.
I didn't see anyone die. In fact, I haven't even seen any Naboo citizen at all.
What about these ones?
As far as I know, it's a city with 20 or so pilots, a couple of bureaucrats, and officials. So then the Queen gets impatient, she asks for a vote of no confidence, and then decides to go back to Naboo to fight a huge invasion force alone.
That wasn't in this movie. I don't know what movie you watched, but it wasn't this one.
Then the Jedi Council tells Qui-Gon that he cannot start training Anakin, but he does it anyways.
I'm not allowed to train you, so I want you to watch me and be mindful.
Yeah, he knows training Anakin is the right thing to do, so he defies the leaders of his religious order to do it without their consent. Because Qui-Gon is
a man of focus, commitment, and sheer fucking will.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon both talk about how Anakin is dangerous when he's standing right there.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
Oh God, I hope we didn't hear that. Did he hear that?
That's the point. That's why he's in the background of this shot. It wasn't an accident. He knows the only person who actually wants him here is Qui-Gon. And he knows he's becoming a burden to him very quickly.
So then George Lucas completely and utterly finally ruins Star Wars forever by having Qui-Gon explain that the Force is microscopic organisms.
Midichlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells.
A lot of people complain about this. I don't get it. First, the Midichlorians are not the Force. They're separate. So the nature of the Force is unchanged. They are a conduit of the Force. I mean, if they were deterministic, I guess that would be kind of lame. But explaining how the Force functions in this universe as a biological mechanism really isn't that strange. The popular theory is that midichlorians are attracted to the Force-sensitive life forms and that they conglomerate in large numbers to allow these life forms to feel the Force and utilize it. George never really went into detail, though, because of the backlash. But the idea is interesting. No idea how it destroys Star Wars. What are the odds Mike tells us why? I'm taking bets.
Or that microscopic organisms in our cells tell us about the Force. Or something.
At least he recognizes that he has no idea what he's talking about, but he's just going to complain about it anyways.
This entire idea and why this is in the movie is so baffling to me that I cannot even wrap my mind around it. It was never even explored or mentioned in the following two films.
I can't imagine why that might be.
I can really only sum it up with one visual image.
He has such a way with words.
I feel so enlightened. Obviously, midichlorians suck. What was I thinking? It all makes sense now.
Finally, we come to the stupid ending, where again nothing makes sense. After hours of boring, passionless, inhuman, robot-like, sleep-inducing dialogue, Jar Jar Binks screams in excitement that he's going home.
Come on, R2.
This was actually the most shocking part of the whole movie, because at this point you forgot you were a human being. Oh, that's right, I'm still alive, and I'm watching a movie, I guess. Wait, did something happen? Continued in part 6.
If I develop alcoholism as a result of this review, can I hold Mike responsible?